Welcome back, guys. Part 2 of wiring in the heated seats. So we left off the first part trying to work out where we want to mount these switches. In the glove box, in the kind of knee bar area, in the ashtray. None of that seemed like a good idea. I was quite set on going in through those plugs under there, but there's not enough depth and the switches would kind of be pointing down in a weird angle. So I reverted to my original idea, which was to sling them under the center console in this small storage area, and you can see me just kind of giving that some thought. I've loosened off the center console already to have a look at it. So next job was to put a quick inline fuse on that yellow feed that I showed at the end of the last video. Just put a 20 amp fuse on there, might need to take that down to 15, so that's ready to connect to the battery. And then here's the wiring loom we built. I've run that, or I'm going to run it underneath and alongside the transmission tunnel and pop it up behind the center console with a little hole in the carpet, so we can get the switches in wherever we want. So that's them there, just sitting there, giving me an idea of how it would look. They're about a metre long, the looms. Next I mocked up what a fascia panel might look like and just stuck a switch through it to give me an idea. It was a good idea. Cut things out with cardboard or paper, get the idea. And I'm going to recess these switches back sort of an inch or so. A, because the switches pop out when you use them, and B, I don't want them too prominent. And I was thinking of covering them in this stretch carpet, but we'll come back to that. Anyway, bit of amateur carpentry later, and 12mm marine ply I had lying around, and here we are. So using that cardboard template, we've got the switches mounted through 35mm holes, giving it a little sand, but I think that looks okay. We're going to cover this, so those holes will get a bit smaller when the covering goes over it. And you can just see we've got about the right sort of depth there, so when you push the switch out, the whole thing's there. You can get your fingers around it and use it okay, I think. And I'm probably just going to stick the switches down because I'm not going to need to remove them, and they'll be on a bit of wood anyway. So here I am just offering it up, doing a bit of a test fit. I've put those two thick bits of masking tape left or right in the center console just to give me a point of reference, because everything's black. It's a bit hard. I'm doing a lot of this at night in the garage with lights on. But yeah, that's not too bad. I tried to kind of eye up the position of the switches so they visually look right to the VDO gauges above them, but I'm fairly happy with that. I think that's going to work okay. So next, I decided not to use that brown stretch carpet, but instead my brother-in-law's an upholsterer, so I went and stole some kind of leatherette vinyl finish stuff off him. Just thought I'd give it a bit of a test fit. Now this finish, which is kind of a rough leather finish, is sort of halfway between the plastic finish on the dash and the vinyl finish on the door cards, so I think it'll work okay. It's a pretty small panel and it's going to be tucked underneath the center console, so, and it's going to have holes cut in it, so it's actually a pretty small area you're going to see, but I think that will work quite nicely. Yeah, happy with that. And then here you can see where I've just wrapped it initially, stapled it one side, wrapped it around, just taped it up to see what it looks like. Obviously a bit of trimming to go on there. You can see a bit more of the grain in the light there. And there it is in the center console. Again, with the fabric, it's a bit thicker, so I'll need to trim it down. And here you go, holes cut in the fabric. I kind of did 8 slits and then folded all the slits back and used plenty of contact adhesive. I also think the inside, the wood inside, you can just see poking through the brown of the wood. I'm probably just going to colour that in black so it looks neat. Next job then was getting the wiring out the back of the center console because there's no holes, so I don't really like cutting OEM parts, but I'm just going to cut a hole in the back here so the loom plugs will go through. And then here you can see the loom now fitted under the carpet. That was fiddly. You'll scratch your knuckles doing that one. And then the slit cut in the center console carpet, which will be covered up by the center console itself. And here it is when the console's out. You can see the little flap I cut in the carpet, so that you can basically run it down to the gear stick and then push it down the side of the transmission tunnel, and then it pops out underneath the seat. And at this point, all work stopped because I got busy and then I got man flu. and I was almost dying, but I managed to make it through the night. So once I'd recovered, we were able to get back to things. And when we did start again, we were greeted with a rather nice surprise. Interesting that's happening is my LCD is beginning to live. It's got normal digits. I tried adjusting them with hour-minute adjusters, sort of there and there. They don't work quite yet, but I'm going to give it a bit longer. One other thing I wanted to do was swap these two dials around. I can't see the oil pressure bar because of the wheel, so I'm going to swap bar and volts around, which I've done. And then here we are just fitting the panel and just making sure that's going to look okay, which we think it does. And then we're going to need to cut a small hole there, which I don't really want to do, but had to put the connectors through. This is just illustrating the finished loom. So you can see the two passenger and driver's seat there. I've just taped those looms up just to make it a bit neater. It's all going to be beneath the center console, but you can see the red low power relay activator going up to the ignition, and then the high load straight from the battery, which actually runs the heated seat elements themselves, and there's all connectors for the gauges. So there we are, ready to go. Putting the center console back in, we've put both the plugs through, and now really we're ready to start clipping everything back together, tightening up the various screws which hold the center console, and putting the dash back together. Before we did that, we needed to stick down the switches, so I just used glue underneath, just simple super glue, and it's just positioned them nice and neatly, squarely in the middle of the circular hole, if that makes sense. And here you can see me just making sure they don't snag and that they look okay. Obviously you can see daylight through the back, but you won't see that when it's in the center console. So all good, ready to go. So here we are, dash, knee pad, everything back together, instrument binnacle back in, all our switches, and now we've got nice bright lights. We have got a working LCD clock. Hopefully we've got a working odometer. We'll see about that when we go out for a drive. But most excitingly, other than that, if we look down to the center console, we have our new heated switch control panel. I've dimmed the lights there in the garage, so you can see there they are, mounted below the video gauges, and that's them coming on nicely. And yes, they do work. I put them in the wrong way round, but then I swapped them, so they work fine. Just putting a bit more light on them there. Sorry, it's a bit harsh, the lighting, but you can see the panel looks pretty decent. The finish matches the surround. The buttons pop out neatly. You can use them when they're pushed in. It's just a bit tricky on your fingers. I'll show you now. You kind of tend to slip, which is why I think Audi designed them to pop out. You get more of a purchase. But yeah, looking pretty good there. And just turning them off. They'd switch off anyway because they're linked to the ignition. There we go. All done. Oh, last finishing touch before we say it's the end of this project. So the only thing left to do now is go out on a cold day, try out the seats, see if the odometer works. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you found that useful. And if you want, you can like and subscribe.